We're in front of San Marcos City Hall tonight following Mano Amiga Safety. Mano Amiga Safety is a political action committee that gathered 1,300 signatures for a petition to increase accountability and transparency in San Marcos Police Department. With these 1,300 signatures, they have successfully put the issue on the table, requesting what's called the Hartman reforms. The Hartman reforms are a list of stipulations meant to increase transparency and accountability in police discipline.
So my name's Benavides. I'm the communications director with Mano Amiga. We're based here in San Marcos. We do a lot of criminal justice reform and community work, just trying to redefine and reimagine what safety means to our community. So we do a lot of COVID outreach, vaccine equity. We do a lot of immigration work too. We actually started as an immigrant rights organization, organizing deportation defense campaigns back in 2017 after a series of ICE raids were happening in Austin. A lot of community members got together and asked themselves what would happen and how would we respond if that were to happen in our community. And so they started organizing deportation defense campaigns, won 5 out of 6 of them, and then quickly realized with the passing of SB4, the racist Show Me Your Papers law, that so many people were entering deportation proceedings as a result of really petty offenses, and we're entering the jail to deportation pipeline over these petty offenses. And so we started pushing for a systemic change, and that started with the cite and release ordinance back in 2019, passed in 2020. That's when I started getting involved with Mano Amiga. I had just moved from Laredo, Texas. It's a border town, also heavily policed. And I grew up, my dad was in and out of jail pretty much all my life, had a lot of substance abuse issues, and I always knew that arresting him was never the answer, and it never resulted in long-lasting change in his life. He was just back, a year later or so. And so we pushed for cite and release, and that made it to where officers in San Marcos can no longer arrest people for low-level offenses that are outlined by state statute. And since then, we've just been building on that and pushing for more and more systemic change in our community. Laredo, I would say, is even more heavily policed than San Marcos because we're a border town, and so we have not just law enforcement there, but we also have the Border Patrol agencies there, and with the passing of SB4, we just see them collaborating in a way that they never did before. I can go on a tangent there, but just going back to why it's important to me, I just think that the way that our county has been addressing issues is just not how we keep our community safe. I think that we keep our community safe by supporting them. I think our community deserves access to mental health assistance and housing, and I think those are the things that will actually keep us safe. Yeah, so today we are sitting in on the San Marcos City Council meeting. They're discussing the meet and confer agreement that our group collected 1,300 signatures to repeal within 4 weeks. We were supposed to have 6 weeks to collect these signatures. Due to miscommunication, intentional or not, from the city, we were only allowed 4 weeks to collect these signatures. Still hit the ground running and collected them with enough time to submit them a week early. And trigger the repeal of this agreement. So this agreement essentially was brought to our attention after, this campaign has been going on since 2020. It's been ongoing since 2020 when a SMPD sergeant named Ryan Hartman was driving his 2-ton pickup truck in Lockhart, was going over 50 miles over the speed limit, flew past 2 stop signs and crashed his 2-ton pickup truck into the vehicle of Pam Watts, killing her life partner, Jennifer Miller.
One of the officers you employ killed a woman with zero accountability. You were able to express your condolences and then hide behind civil service rules at the time. But now is the time to make it right and do your part in implementing the 5 common sense Hartman reforms.
They found on the scene an open 24-ounce can of Dos Equis in his cup holder. He refused to prove his sobriety on the scene and instead was just given a ticket for running a stop sign and 5.5 months of paid leave from the police department. Months later, he returns to the police department, and 6 weeks after returning from almost 6 months of paid leave, he tases a young man who is on his knees and has his hands in the air and is complying with orders. And it was a premeditated tase. He said, "I'm gonna tase this guy," then 15 seconds later said, "Walk towards me," and immediately tased him. We've been working with Al Leyva as well as Pam Watts, the surviving partner of Jennifer Miller, and they're both really passionate about seeking justice because Hartman received no accountability for killing Jennifer Miller. He got a ticket for running a stop sign and 6 months of paid leave because the police department essentially has this meet and confer agreement that grants them only 180 days to investigate wrongdoing by officers. They ran out the clock in the case of Hartman, or at least claimed they did. They returned him on the 144th day, but nevertheless used the excuse that they couldn't discipline him because 180 days had transpired, and then we found out that wasn't true. But they've just been hiding behind this police union contract. When it came to Hartman tasing Al, he, rather than facing a suspension on his record, gave up a week of paid leave after just having come back from 6 months of paid leave. And so we can go on and on about different cases in which this contract has come to play and allowed officers to evade discipline for terrorizing our community, essentially. And so we are, Pam proposed the 5 Hartman reforms at the beginning of the meet and confer negotiations over the summer. City did not consider them, did not implement them, and we promised them before those negotiations even started that we would collect signatures to repeal it if those reforms were not included. Sure enough, they ratified it without the reforms on September 6th, and we collected enough signatures, and now they're deciding whether they will honor our petition and rescind it immediately or send it to the May ballot. On June 10th of 2021, which was the 1-year anniversary of Jennifer's death, we got together with Pam Watts, her surviving partner, and held a peaceful vigil right outside these doors. It was along this area. Just kind of demanding justice for Jennifer Miller and honoring her life. The Chief of Police, Stan Stanridge, showed up to that vigil unannounced and thought that this was the appropriate time to start explaining civil service rules to Pam. And it was that day that we learned about the 180-day rule, where he claimed that by the time he joined the police department, because he was a new hire at the time, Chief Stanridge, that they had already transpired the 180 days and he wasn't able to enact discipline. That's the day that we learned about the meet and confer agreement, did research for another year, and found out about all these special protections for cops that allow them to get away with, you know, terrorizing our community and inflicting harm and violence upon our neighbors. And so on June 10th of 2022, Pam announced the 5 Hartman reforms that she demanded be implemented in the meet and confer agreement. One of them, end the 180-day rule. The second one is ending delay of interviews for misconduct, because currently officers are afforded 48 hours to prepare their answers and review all of the evidence against them before giving a statement when they're accused of misconduct. That's something that we don't provide to victims who are often questioned while they're still in their hospital beds. And I just can't imagine a case in which officers would give a suspect all of the evidence against them before trying to solicit an incriminating statement from them. They would balk at such hindrances on their ability to elicit that kind of statement. So we just want them to be held to a standard equal to the rest of us. 3, we want to end third-party arbitration, because currently we have a system in which some guy from North Texas who has no ties to our community can make a final decision that goes against that of the Chief of Police and the will of the community. And so we're pushing for those hearings to instead be heard by the Civil Service Commission. 4th one is access to personnel files. I think that one's pretty straightforward. You know, the people with the most unchecked power in our society have zero transparency, and we just want to have that transparency so we know who's, you know, inflicting harm upon our neighbors. And the last one is came into play when Al Leyva was tased and Hartman was able to give up paid vacation instead of facing a suspension. We're also trying to undo that in the contract as well. So I think that when it comes to our community and their knowledge of these kinds of injustices happening in our community, I think that before Mano Amiga came around, there probably wasn't a lot of education about this. I think every community should have a group like Mano Amiga that's just kind of like a watchdog for the jail and the local police and law enforcement agencies. I think that with the Jennifer Miller case, I think that really opened a lot of people's eyes. And then when we started collecting signatures to repeal this contract, police union contract, we would knock on the doors of our community members, and a lot of them have experienced this kind of misconduct firsthand, and it was just really incredible to learn how many people had experienced it. It was almost like they had those direct experiences but had no idea how common it was in our community. And so I think that we're kind of filling that gap and definitely pushing a lot of education. But we collected these signatures, 1,300 pen to paper in just 4 weeks, and I think that speaks very clearly to what the will of our community is. There's room for everyone in this movement. Mano Amiga has some of the most friendliest, welcoming people, and if you feel called to do this work, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, if you believe that people should be kept out of our dangerous jail for petty offenses, and you believe that cops should be held to a standard equal to the rest of us, you belong in this movement. Social media, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, soon TikTok, kind of on the back burner, and it's Mano Amiga SM. That's ManoAmigaSM on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
I also think that we had an opportunity to push against this timeline. I think that, in my opinion, as a body, we didn't take into consideration the seriousness and the realness, the rawness of our neighbors' feedback. And I mean, we could say, we've always dropped in all these little technicalities. So, there was a list and we always go by this list. And we see it all the time. We always make room for things when it's important. Like, you just can't convince me that there wasn't some way, somehow, that we couldn't have considered them then. Like, I don't.
Let me remind everyone that what's on the agenda is providing for the repeal, and the motion is to deny.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mayor Houston?
Aye.
Ms. Garza?
No, I haven't heard a compelling argument as to why rescinding the contract and being in temporary limbo is gonna make for a better or safer community than what we have now. So I'm gonna say no. Sometimes we really do have to knock everything down and recreate something as a community until we see change. So I'm gonna say no.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez?
I'm a no, and the reason is I'd rather negotiate before we give up on anything. And I think going back and negotiating will be the way to come up with a win-win for everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Mendoza?
Aye.
Mr. Prager?
No.
Mr. Scott?
No.
Okay. The motion to deny fails with 2 yeas and 4 noes. I'm sorry, 3 yeas and 4 noes.
Mr. Cosentino.
Contract killers.
We need those in the audience to please refrain from speaking at this point. Let us continue on with our meeting. Mr. Cosentino, where are we at this point?
So the motion to deny failed. It would be appropriate at this time to entertain a motion to approve the resolution that's on your agenda.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Gonzalez, did you second the motion, Ms. Garza? Okay. So a motion to approve by Ms. Garza, seconded by Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Vega?
Mayor Houston?
No.
Ms. Garza?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mr. Mendoza?
No.
Mr. Prager?
I'm an aye. The reason why is our Constitution enshrines our citizens the right to petition grievances to your government. And what we have before us is a petition that meets the rules that we set forth if you have a grievance. And so with that, aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
And Mr. Gleason?
And I'm going to say no, and I'm going to put something out that I think it's unfortunate that the voters are not going to have a chance to have a say at this. When we discussed Prop A, we discussed how important it was to find out where the public stood on this. not just us as a body or a handful of 1% or 5% of petitioners of the city. This was an opportunity to send this to the community and let the community decide and find out exactly where the community stood on this, and still have the possibility for reforms. And so I'm disappointed that the voters are not going to have a chance to have a say at this. And I think it's unfortunate, and we'll see where it goes from there. I don't know.
And in response to what you had, Mr. Prather, not arguing with what you had to say, but there was an alternative, and that alternative was there.
I will add, I think there's still an opportunity for us to reimagine this process within the legal parameters and to be intentional and involving our community, even those that may not be eligible to vote for whatever reason. So I appreciate the sentiment of hearing the voters.
I just think it's ironic that the groups that came in here and said, we need to send Prop A to the voters, we need to find out. Not a person that spoke today said the voters should have a say in this.
Okay.
And so I think it's just unfortunate that the voters don't get to have a say.
Okay. And at this point, so Mr. Cosentino, we have a motion to approve that is passed, to repeal and with a date that is into the future.
We're going to be following Mano Amiga Safety as they continue to show up at every city council meeting to make sure that the reforms don't fall on the wayside. So stay tuned, and thank you so much for watching this important information that's going to make you a more informed community member.